Divorce is so common now that we talk about it like weather. Half of marriages end. Statistics repeat themselves. Life moves on. But if you were a child when it happened, normal is not the word you'd use. Because for you, divorce didn't arrive as an event. It arrived as a feeling. It showed up in small, almost invisible ways. In the silence after an argument that never fully resolved. In the way one parent packed a bag and said, "I'll see you this weekend," without explaining what that really meant. In the sudden awareness that the ground beneath you, something you assumed was permanent, could disappear without warning. No one sat you down and said, "Your sense of safety is about to change." But your body noticed, your nervous system noticed, something quietly rewired itself in that moment. From then on, the world felt a little less predictable. Love felt a little less solid. And stability stopped feeling like something you could lean on. It became something you hoped for, but didn't fully trust. That's the part people miss. Divorce doesn't just separate parents, it separates a child from the illusion that relationships are safe by default. And if you've ever wondered why closeness can feel both comforting and threatening, why part of you relaxes when things are good, while another part braces for impact, this didn't come from nowhere. It began the moment normal shattered quietly, before you even had words for what you lost. When your parents divorced, it didn't just change what happened in your life, it changed how your brain learned to explain the world. If you were very young, toddlers or preschool age, your mind was still egocentric, not selfish, just developmental. You believed that events happened because of you, so when one parent left, your nervous system reached for the only explanation it could handle. "I must have caused this." Maybe you don't remember thinking those words clearly, but your body remembers the conclusion. It shows up later as a quiet, persistent shame. A feeling that if you were easier, quieter, better, people would stay. That love is conditional. That being too much risks abandonment. If you were older, especially a teenager, the wound took a different shape. You had enough awareness to see the cracks, but not enough power to stop them. The people who were supposed to model commitment failed at it in front of you. Love didn't look safe, it looked unstable, temporary, something people promised and then walked away from. That's how skepticism was born. And here's what matters. Those early conclusions didn't disappear when you grew up. They became templates. Shame becomes self-silencing. Skepticism becomes emotional distance. Hyper-independence becomes protection. You might tell yourself, "This is just my personality," but much of it is adaptive intelligence, formed at an age when you were trying to survive emotionally, without the tools to fully understand what was happening. It wasn't immaturity, it was meaning-making under pressure. Your adult reactions aren't random. They're echoes of the age you were when the ground first shifted, when love stopped feeling guaranteed, and safety became something you learned to earn instead of expect. After the divorce, life didn't just split into before and after, it split into places. One house had its own rules, rhythms, and emotional climate. Dinner at a certain time. Feelings talked through, or not talked about at all. One version of normal on weekdays, another on weekends, so you adapted. At Mum's house, you learned one way of being. At Dad's house, you learned another. Different expectations, different boundaries, different versions of who you were allowed to be. To survive, you became flexible, highly attuned. You learned to read rooms quickly, tone of voice, body language, unspoken tension. You figured out which parts of yourself were welcome where, and which parts needed to stay zipped up in the suitcase. That adaptability looked like maturity from the outside, but inside something quieter was happening. You never fully unpacked, because unpacking assumes permanence, and permanence was no longer guaranteed. Over time, this creates what many children of divorce carry into adulthood, a fragmented sense of self. Not broken, but divided. You belong in many places, yet you don't feel deeply rooted in any of them. You can fit in almost anywhere, but struggle to answer a simple question. Who am I when I'm not adjusting to someone else? This is why some adults feel strangely unsettled, even when life is fine. Why they move through relationships with one foot always slightly out the door. Why commitment can feel less like safety and more like vulnerability. Your nervous system learned an important rule early on. Don't get too comfortable. That low-level hum of anxiety isn't fear of the present, it's memory. It's the echo of transitions that never quite ended, of bags half-packed, of goodbyes that came without warning. You didn't develop this flexibility because you were indecisive or unstable. You developed it because you learned to live in two worlds, and no one taught you how to merge them into one. By the time your parents' marriage was unraveling, your body had already started keeping score. Children don't understand conflict the way adults do. They don't analyze motives or timelines. They feel atmosphere, tone, absence. The nervous system absorbs what the mind cannot explain. And when tension becomes chronic, raised voices, slammed doors, long silences, the body adapts. It goes on alert. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline weren't meant to flood the system all day, every day. They're designed for short bursts, run from danger, then return to calm. But in a home where conflict lingered, the danger didn't leave. It sat at the dinner table, it slept down the hall, it arrived without warning. So your body learned to stay ready. This is why, years later, your reactions can feel disproportionate to the moment. A partner grows quiet, and your chest tightens. A message goes unanswered, and your stomach drops. A small disagreement triggers a wave of panic that seems to come from nowhere. Logically, you may know you're safe, but your body doesn't speak logic, it speaks memory. Neuroscience shows that prolonged childhood stress sensitizes the amygdala, the brain's threat detector. Think of it like a smoke alarm calibrated in a burning house. Eventually, it starts reacting to toast, to footsteps, to silence. That's hypervigilance. You're not too sensitive. You're not overreacting for no reason. Your nervous system was trained to anticipate loss before it happened, because once it did. The most important part to understand is this: your body isn't betraying you, it's protecting you using an outdated map. It learned that attachment came with danger, that closeness could collapse without warning. So it stays ready, guarded, alert. Healing doesn't begin by forcing yourself to calm down. It begins by recognizing that your reactions are not flaws. They're evidence of a body that learned to survive uncertainty and hasn't yet been shown, consistently, that safety can last. In a healthy family, there's a clear emotional hierarchy. Adults hold the weight. Children are allowed to be children. Divorce often collapses that structure. When one parent was overwhelmed, lonely, or angry, you may have quietly stepped into the gap. Maybe no one asked you to, but you felt it anyway. The tension, the sadness, the unspoken expectation to help things hold together. This is how many children of divorce become adults far too early. Perhaps a parent confided in you about the other, shared details you weren't meant to carry, leaned on you for comfort, reassurance, or emotional grounding. You became the listener, the mediator, the strong one. Psychology calls this parentification, a role reversal where the child becomes the emotional caretaker. But what that term doesn't fully capture is the cost. To carry adult emotions, you had to put your own on hold. Your needs felt inconvenient. Your feelings felt heavy, so you learned to minimize them. You became low maintenance, responsible, helpful. You learned that love arrived when you were useful and retreated when you asked for too much. That lesson doesn't disappear with age. As an adult, you may struggle to accept care. Compliments feel uncomfortable. Support feels undeserved. You're quick to show up for others, but slow to name your own exhaustion. Boundaries trigger guilt, as if saying no means you're abandoning someone. And the hardest part? You often don't realize you're tired until you're depleted. You weren't mature, you were overloaded. You learned to regulate everyone else's emotions before you learned how to listen to your own. You became fluent in reading others while remaining strangely disconnected from yourself. Healing from this isn't about becoming less caring. It's about learning that your worth was never tied to how much you carried. You were never meant to be the adult in the room. You were just a child trying to keep something from falling apart. By the time you reach adulthood, all of these experiences, the split reality, the constant alertness, the early responsibility, begin to converge in one place: how you attach to other people. Attachment isn't about who you love. It's about how safe your nervous system feels while loving. For many children of divorce, love becomes a paradox. You want closeness deeply, yet your body braces the moment it appears. Intimacy feels nourishing and dangerous at the same time. Some people lean toward anxious attachment. You crave connection, reassurance, consistency, but beneath that longing is a constant fear of abandonment. When a partner takes longer to respond, your mind races. You replay conversations. You search for signs that something is wrong. You may give more, explain more, love harder, hoping that if you're attentive enough, you can prevent what you once couldn't stop. Others develop avoidant attachment. You learned early that relying on people can hurt. Independence feels safer than closeness. When a relationship deepens, something inside you tightens. You pull back, you go quiet. You convince yourself you're better on your own. Not because you don't want love, but because leaving first feels like control. Many people oscillate between the two. You long for connection. You fear being consumed by it. You fear being abandoned by it. This is why anxious and avoidant partners so often find each other. Each activates the other's deepest wound. One reaches, the other retreats. The cycle intensifies, not because either person is broken, but because both are protecting something old. Here's what's rarely said. You're not reacting to your partner's behavior in isolation. You're reacting to unfinished endings, to moments from childhood where closeness was followed by loss, where conflict meant separation, where love changed without your consent. So when a disagreement arises, your nervous system doesn't register it as a moment. It registers it as a threat. The past floods the present. Panic or shutdown takes over. Understanding this doesn't magically make relationships easy, but it does replace self-blame with clarity. You're not too needy. You're not emotionally unavailable. You learn to love in an environment where love wasn't stable, and that paradox, wanting connection while fearing it, makes sense when closeness once meant everything could fall apart without warning. One of the most confusing legacies of growing up with divorce isn't the fear of conflict. It's the discomfort with calm. When your early environment was unpredictable, your nervous system learned to associate stability with waiting. Waiting for the next argument, the next shift, the next goodbye. Calm was never neutral. It was the quiet before something changed. So as an adult, peace can feel strangely suspicious. When a relationship is going well, part of you relaxes, but another part stays alert. You notice the silence, you track small changes, you brace yourself, not because anything is wrong, but because once, calm didn't last. This creates a pattern psychologists often overlook: anticipatory grief. You begin grieving a loss before it happens. You emotionally prepare for an ending that hasn't arrived yet. Sometimes, you even initiate it, picking fights, pulling away, or emotionally checking out, just to regain a sense of control. If something good is going to disappear, it feels safer to see it coming. This isn't self-sabotage in the way people often describe it. It's protection. Your nervous system learned that happiness could be temporary, and temporary things hurt less when you don't fully relax into them. That's why sustained safety can feel unfamiliar, why boredom feels unsettling, why stillness triggers restlessness instead of relief. Your body was shaped by a world where stability was fragile. It learned to stay slightly tense, even in moments that look peaceful from the outside. Healing doesn't mean forcing yourself to trust overnight. It means gently teaching your nervous system a new association. That calm doesn't always precede loss. That sometimes nothing happening is exactly what safety looks like. And that you don't have to stay braced forever to survive it. If you're watching this because you love someone who grew up with divorced parents, there's something important to understand first. Many of their reactions aren't about you. They're echoes of a time when closeness didn't feel safe. Consistency matters more than you might realize. When they grew up in emotional unpredictability, reliability became the language of safety. Small things count. Saying what you mean, doing what you say you'll do, showing up when you promised, especially when it's inconvenient. Conflict can be terrifying for them, even when they don't show it. What feels like a normal disagreement to you may register in their body as the beginning of an ending. During tension, reassurance matters. Simple phrases like, "I'm upset, but I'm not leaving," or "we can work through this," help calm a nervous system that learned to expect loss. But here's the part that often gets missed. Loving a child of divorce doesn't mean becoming their therapist. You can offer safety without erasing your own needs. You can be patient without overextending yourself. Understanding their past should deepen compassion, not eliminate boundaries. You cannot fix what happened before you arrived. You don't need to compete with their history. Your role isn't to heal them, it's to be steady, to model a kind of presence they may have never experienced before. Sometimes that consistency alone does more than any explanation ever could. Growing up with divorce didn't just leave scars, it also shaped strengths, ones that often go unnoticed because they look so ordinary. You learn to adapt early. Change doesn't paralyze you the way it does others. You can move, adjust, and survive in new emotional climates because you've been doing it since childhood. You're perceptive. You notice shifts in mood, tone, and energy long before they're spoken. Your empathy runs deep, not because you're soft, but because you had to understand others to feel safe. You're also independent. You know how to take care of yourself. You don't collapse when things fall apart, because part of you learned long ago how to keep going. But every strength has a cost. That empathy can turn into emotional exhaustion. You feel responsible for atmospheres you didn't create. You sense distress and move toward it, even when it drains you. Independence can quietly become isolation, relying on yourself so completely that asking for help feels unnatural or even unsafe. And adaptability? It can blur the edges of your own identity. When you're always adjusting, it's easy to lose track of what you actually need. None of this means your strengths are flaws. It means they were forged in a context that required sacrifice. The goal isn't to give them up. It's to use them in places where they're returned, not exploited. Sensitivity becomes a gift when it's met with care. Strength becomes sustainable when it's shared. You don't need to harden to be whole. You just need environments that don't demand you carry everything alone. Breaking the cycle of divorce doesn't mean erasing your past or fixing yourself into someone new. It means understanding what shaped you and choosing to respond differently. Now, your brain is not frozen in time. Neuroplasticity is real. With consistent safety, self-awareness, and support, your nervous system can learn that closeness doesn't always lead to loss. That conflict doesn't automatically mean abandonment. That calm can last. Healing isn't dramatic, it's quiet. It happens in small moments, pausing instead of panicking, staying instead of fleeing, naming a need instead of suppressing it. You're not rebuilding from scratch. You're teaching your system a new rhythm. You were never broken, you were adapted, and those adaptations can soften without disappearing. If this video helped you feel seen, or put language to something you've carried quietly, you're not alone. This channel is a space for exploring the deeper patterns behind how we think, connect, and heal. If you'd like to continue this journey, consider subscribing. And if you grew up in a divorced family, I'd love to hear from you. What's one pattern you've noticed in your adult relationships? Share it in the comments. Thank you for watching.